Imagine for a moment a world without art, without dance, opera, literature, poetry. That world would be a very, very dull place.
Today on the show, we have Sam Stransky, an abstract visual artist whose use of color tries to subvert the senses. She always paints to music and as such sees specific colors with when certain musical notes are heard, and this is her inspiration. Because of this, she has found a flow as a live painter at a wide variety of shows and festivals across the United States and Mexico, including Breakaway Music Festival, Wonderbus Festival, Deja Voom, and BassCenter 12 and 11. Sam, thanks for taking the time coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were talking earlier. One of the things that just kind of like popped out at me was your use of color. I mean, what do you think was, I don't know, what do you think was your first inspiration on just trying to want to use color and want to use that to express yourself?
Well, I would say a lot of it really comes through music. Uh, the color itself kind of comes along with whatever song I'm listening to, or like what I'm feeling at the moment, or who I'm thinking about. It really all just kind of depends on like that moment and I guess what that moment means to me, like what color I think of when I see that, or
Yeah.
what song I hear, you know. Yeah, and I guess it also just depends on the mood mostly too. But the inspiration for color, oh man, it just kind of started on its own. Like the use, I don't know, I didn't really plan it that way. I didn't plan the art to come out the way it does. But color is definitely what brought my audience in the first place anyway, and myself included when I started. So yeah, color just in general has a lot to do with the paintings themselves and the emotion they evoke.
Yeah, I feel like there's certain colors that just kind of resonate with certain personality types. Like certain people are just drawn to like blues and greens, and certain people are drawn to like, the reds, yellows, more passionate colors. Let me ask you, when you were growing up, was there any certain colors that you kind of gravitated towards?
Oh my gosh, definitely green. I don't know why that so suddenly came to mind, but like just nature in general has a big influence, like feeling grounded. So green, thinking about like what other things it goes with besides red, like for Christmas, or like
Yeah.
blue with the sky. It's like, okay, well, how can we expand on this to kind of make that color pop? Because I mean, you can't really throw, well, I guess you can throw any color with anything if you really think about it, and depending on the shades. But like green itself is kind of hard to do alone.
Right.
So I mean, you could, don't get me wrong, like with all of the shades of green and all the shades of any color in general, but the combination of the colors, I feel, is what makes the painting itself. Because even if we just use green as an example, you just look at a plain green painting, and I don't know, there's almost a sense of like, what is it missing?
Hmm.
So adding additional color to make your color per se pop out is kind of what drew me into painting in the first place, was seeing how you can change the way you look at the color and itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, like how you can use certain colors to complement it and bring out the subtleties. Like
Yes.
whenever I see like green, I always immediately want to add yellow to it, just because I love that spectrum of green to
Yes.
yellow, as my background would indicate.
Yes.
Uh,
I was just gonna say.
but I don't know, like I feel like I love that transition from yellow to green, because like I always kind of look at it from a marketing perspective.
Mhm.
Certain colors are used in like certain brands or referenced in certain ways, like you said, to trigger an emotional reaction.
Mhm.
So when you look at like that transition from yellow into green, from a marketing perspective, yellow is always something that's vibrant, energetic, right? It's the color of the sun. It's super
Mhm.
active. But then green, like you said, it's connection to nature or connection to stability, right? Something firm,
Yes.
something lasting. That transition into it, like it becomes a lot more passive, as plants just kind of depend on everything else to survive, right? They have no active action of their own besides growing and feeding off of what's presented. So I love that transition because I feel like it's that vibrant energy, that active passion that kind of fades into the passivity of just letting it be and going with the flow of nature.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And even like if you're looking at a sunset and you see the green in the grass, you can almost see like the transition of color from your landscape to the sky with the vibrancy of the yellow,
Yeah.
contrasting with the green in the grass. And we all have our own different versions of what beauty looks like, and I guess it would be interpreted differently by somebody different, maybe, I don't know, but I guess it depends on how you feel about the color green and the color yellow and how they go together. But if that's something you're into, you're like, oh, I love nature, I love the way the sun looks against grass, like that's just your color combination, like I personally, like, you love green and yellow, I personally love like the green, yellow, and purple combination. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like royalty plus the sun plus nature. It's just like the amount of emotion that's brought on by the colors, it gets me. uh like in movies, you probably know that color is often used to portray emotion in scenes and such. And I mean, I really played off that, like in my life, just noticing like, oh, why did they choose a red shirt when this is happening,
Yeah.
so I guess somehow tying this into my painting, but that's kind of what I like to do, is like, why am I using this color right now, like what is the reason for it? And instead of trying to like kind of answer that question, I
Mhm.
just kind of let it come out, you know I just like, it's like, okay, I'm mad, what's the color I'm thinking of right now? I guess red, because that's passionate about whatever I'm thinking about right now. I'm angry, how am I going to express myself with this feeling? Well, let me get my red paint and my canvas and just see what happens after that. And it just kind of builds from there. Like, painting is very therapeutic for me in general, so getting that release and also being to portray that feeling with a color kind of is relieving in a way. It's like, all right, I got it out of that. I got out of that. I got it out of my body. Uh, Color. Oh my gosh. It's important, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, and particularly when we're talking about like color as parts of your psyche too,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a very primal thing. Like you were saying, what color is anger? What color is that emotion? It's red, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
look how far back that association goes, I mean, red is also the planet Mars, right? Mars was always
Yeah.
the god of war, right? So there's always all this history of interaction with color and how it's kind of shaped our society, how we perceive the environment around us.
Yeah, and then it's all up to interpretation too.
Yeah.
Like, is my feeling for red the same feeling for you? You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
age old question we all tend to kind of ask. Like, is your blue my blue? Um, so it's awesome because that's why art is so. What's the word I'm looking for? Hmm, perspective. Oh, I can't think of it. Is this gonna be edited?
Oh no. No, no,
No.
we definitely go free form and raw.
Ah.
Um,
Ah.
so-
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
So
because
no
I don't know.
censing.
Well, I think some of the best parts of a conversation as well are all like the little goofy ways that we choose to communicate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
we all have
Yes.
these ideas, and like I don't know, like it. Particularly when we're excited about expressing those ideas, it's hard to communicate it in words sometimes, which is why art is such a great outlet for that, right?
Yes.
Expressing those
Yes.
those feelings that we just quite can't get out verbally.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I guess that's why art is so up to interpretation,
Yeah.
like why it hits differently for different people in different ways, Um, definitely just used to evoke emotion is probably the most reason I use, or the only reason I use color.
So I guess when you first started getting into art, did you start off doing doodles and penciling, or did you just go full blown into using color?
Well, it started with pencil and pens. And then, I got my first sketch pad. So they let me try drawing. And before you know it, the markers come out, and then the colored pencils, and then eventually paint came into my life. Not really sure how it all got started either, because I'm completely self-taught too.
Yeah.
So every piece of art supplies that I would receive before I really start getting serious would be like a gift of some sort. So uh I guess when it graduated from the pen and pencil, and I was like, let me take this a step further, uh that's when the color really started coming into my life. My grandfather was an artist, and he used color in all of his art. Like, he was more like oil paint based.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think about, because like his use of color is like so different from mine. His is more like I don't want to say conservative, but like more traditional use of
Right.
color. And I mean, you've seen some of my paintings; they're all over the place. Like, it goes from like bright yellow to really bright purple to black to white, and his is just much more subtle, just
Yeah.
like nice transition from white to gray, and then a nice red over here. Like, it's just, you can just tell the difference in intensity almost, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
kind of
Well, also the difference in how society viewed art at the time. What sort of painting
yes.
did he do?
He would do like very basic things, like I remember one's like a ballerina with like her point shoes and like a still pose,
Mhm.
a few landscapes, like roosters, animals, just very typical realism, I
Yeah.
guess would be the word, rather than abstract. So yeah, he had like a particular technique that I like can't match. Like, I wish I had them available to show you, because they are so cool. Just like the different brush strokes, like, and I don't know if it's just me as an artist, like those are the little details in art that I really appreciate, just like the
Oh,
difference in
absolutely.
size and brush stroke and amount of paint used and stuff like that. Like, just the little subtle differences is just so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
that's why I have a lot of respect for that kind of realism as well, because I mean, it's almost using like a different side of your brain from when you're just doing abstract stuff, because
Mhm,
I do surrealism when I paint, so I have my
mhm.
hand in both options, because I like to do stuff that's definitely realistic and has those realistic undertones, but I
Mhm.
also like it to get a little weird when I want it to.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a fine balance there, because that realism, it really is an entirely different skill set than doing
It
abstract stuff,
is.
because
Mhm.
abstract stuff is just in the moment, it's spontaneous. A lot of the times you're just kind of going with your gut feeling, as opposed
Yeah.
to realism, like you have to have a long plan out
Mhm.
you want to do and layer it, particularly with oils, which is such an unforgiving medium.
Yeah. I can't. Like, I don't typically use oil because it's so tedious, and it's just I just prefer acrylic, I guess, because it's just easier to work with and it dries faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right completely. It's just like the different styles of abstract and the different styles of realism combined. uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I keep losing my train of thought, because I keep getting excited about one thing and then we talk about another. I'm like, wait. But I don't know, abstract, like you said, is very in the moment, and realism, you need to like really prep and plan. And I don't want to say it's easier to do abstract, because maybe not, you know. For me personally, like, I'm such a perfectionist when it comes to lines and stuff. So when I do the realism, it's just like, it has to be like this. This is what it has to look like. Like, this is what of some sort. I need to sketch it out. I need to draft it, essentially. But with abstract, I feel a little bit more free to just kind of express whatever it is I'm feeling at the moment, you know. Like, don't get me wrong, when a drawing turns out really well and perfect, and like, that looks exactly what it's supposed to look like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great feeling as well. But it's also kind of cool stepping away from a canvas and being like, what did I just do in the past 2 hours? Like, what are those shapes? Like, it's definitely just two, like you said, 2 different skill sets, both very cool though. And you know, to be a master of all of them, imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, you're getting up there with, I mean, those artists that not only do they know those different styles, but they know how to utilize the nuances of those styles to complement styles that would oftentimes kind of butt heads or contrast. And when you like, you know, have worked in all those different mediums, and you're able to kind of combine those different things together that are, I mean, primarily if you look at like some of the art that like takes like, the ultra realism, right? You know, whether it's just like something weird like a pair of hands, and then like has that go into like you know, kind of like a pop arty vibe. I was
Yeah.
looking at a painting, I forget who it was the other day, it just kind of popped up on my Instagram, and it was just a pair of hands that like started off all, you know, ultra realistic, but as like the painting went, they just kind of melted down into like this entirely kind of abstract pop art where things just got super bright and cartoony, and like that kind of stuff always impresses me
Same.
because yeah, primarily when it comes to stuff that I can't do, I'm always just like, oh man, how did they do that?
You're like, that's awesome. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely, even, you know, even as an artist, I see others doing their you know, they're doing this work, and I'm just like, how are you doing that? Like where'd the ideas come from, you know? Like, there's this one artist I worked with a lot when I was working with BassCenter artists. His name was Joey Allen, and he takes like classic cartoon characters and kind of like overlaps them. And somehow it's like, you know exactly what characters are in that painting, but since they're all overlapped, you wouldn't, like, at first glance, you wouldn't know that was those characters in all in like one spot. Like, it's just so up to interpretation, you know. It's the beauty about art, being able to like look at something and being able to have your own feeling about it and it not be wrong. You know, that's a good thing about.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was going to say that is what one of the best things about art is that it leaves it up in the subjective imagination of people, what they want to see, and also to project on what they need to project on. Because I don't know, one of the things, I was an art therapist for a while, and one of the things that we would always do is we would use art as a way to project what we are thinking about ourselves or what we're feeling about ourselves into something tangible that we can reflect on. I mean, this is where self-portraits, I think, are a phenomenal tool to use. I was one of the exercises we do, and I recommend this for all artists, particularly if they're like having trouble finding their voice, you know, finding their confidence in art, is we did 30 self-portraits in 30 days, right? And you use different styles. And, you know, some of it can be just like stick figures. Some of it can be sketches. But, you know, you try and associate a different style with different parts of yourself and how you see yourself, right? And then kind of gives you a snapshot out of all the different ways that you can perceive what you can be.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And you know, I learned a long time ago that I don't remember who told me, but a long time ago, I remember stressing about, you know, coming into the art business and like, oh, I don't have any clients, I don't have this, I don't have that. And then I was so focused on selling the art, I couldn't like make the art, you know, like I was having like an artist block. And I just remember freaking out, and I'm like, why can't I make good art right now? And I just remember, it must have been my mom, but she said something along the lines of like, well, why does it have to be good right now? Like, why does the art have to be good? Like, if you're not feeling good today, why does the art have to be good today? Like, you can just, if you're just put an X on the paper, then that's just how you're feeling today. And but you've made just that much more progress to get through that artist block, you know. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Weird. It's weird
Well,
way to.
I mean, also like art as well. I mean, even the art that's like inspired by some of the worst emotions and some of the most desperate states of mind can produce some of the most long-lasting artworks. I mean, you look at, you know, the
Mhm.
works of Van Gogh, or if you ever seen the black paintings by Goya. He
I
had,
have actually.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, you know,
Mhm.
some of those
Mhm.
depicting, you know, what those men were going through with their struggles with, you know, I'm sure mental illness as well as life circumstances, the way they coped with like painting these things that, you know, in their own way, though sometimes horrific, have a bold statement and a beautiful
Mhm.
message.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and the symbolism that you don't even realize is there, like either as the viewer or the artist, like you usually find things that are either personal to you, whether it be the artist meant to put it in there or not, you know.
Right.
A really good example of this is a lot of my abstract paintings, people will tell me that they find faces in them. They're like, oh, I see that smile in there, and it'll be like a yellow painting, you know, evoking like happiness or
Yeah. Yeah.
pink or something, and I'm just like, I don't see like I don't see it. Where's the face? So it's just cool. It's cool when that happens. Like, did you mean to put that bird there? I'll just be like, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
I one time
amazing.
had a
Uh-huh.
huh? Oh,
The-
sorry. One time I had donated an abstract piece to like an art auction, and I remember the security was like, which way does it go? Like, which is it supposed to hang, I guess, on the wall? And I was like, whichever way you want. And he was like, not having that answer. He was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's supposed, but your signature's on the bottom. I'm like, okay, but it can go any way, sir. And he was just the looking back at it, looking at me like,
Whatever's easiest for you, like, you know, like that's
yeah,
the answer everybody wants, you know.
yeah, exactly. Whatever way you want it to be. Like, put it long ways, put it upwards, vertically, horizontally, doesn't matter. Because at that point, once you bought the painting, it's yours, you know? So
Yeah. Well,
hang
I
it
mean,
whichever way you want.
also, I think that's one of the awesome things about the human mind is that when we perceive things, you know, like you were saying with the faces and the uncanny valley effect, you know, our mind wants to project these patterns and these familiar
Mm-hmm.
patterns that we know onto the things we see. So that's the awesome thing about abstract art is, you know, the more you stare at it, particularly if it's in your own home, over time, the more different things that you'll associate with it and that you'll see
Mm-hmm.
in it. So, you know, inevitably you're getting layers and layers of meaning.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. A few artists I've discussed this with, like, it's like is an abstract painting if it doesn't have like 50 layers of paint on it already. because like it is layers. It's just layers of like, oh, I need more here. Or, and you know what I like to say when I quote unquote mess up in a painting that I'm working on, I just say, okay, well, this is part of the painting now. And I just kind of add on to it, you know, like this is it. This is okay. I'll just add some more yellow here, a little something, a little shadowing here. Okay, all set, good as new. Now this is the way the painting is going. So, I mean, it's just, it's so, going back to the abstract and realism thing, it's like being able to just take that brush and just fucking, am I allowed to curse? Like, being it, rather than having to like sit down and intensely stare, like, and make sure this line goes here and this line goes there, like, when you can just like freely throw it on there and be like, what do you see in it? And then people are like, oh, well, I see something nice. Let me buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it is just letting go too, even with realism and any type of art that you're making, just being able to let go and accept if you have made a quote unquote mistake in this painting. You just roll with it, man. I mean, it's the only way to get through it. It's kind of like in life too. It's just like, oh, I bumped in the road here, and there's only one way to get around it is to either paint over it or just keep rolling with it, because it's just going to be like the painting you see in your head. It's not going to be that anyway at the end of the day. Like it never will be. Like it might be, but it's not going to, it might be something similar to what you originally imagined, but like because like, especially like when you're doing an original acrylic where you have no eraser, if you accidentally pour all that black paint on, and then you got to somehow make it work by throwing in some other like colors to help shade or blend or something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess that's the thing about art as well, primarily with folks like you and me who are self-taught, is that those mistakes are crucial to us developing how to do certain brushstrokes and how to learn how to do things a certain way. I mean, I have probably thrown out or repainted over at least a dozen canvases that I knew I fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true too. Like, and oh my God, it's definitely trial and error when you're learning on your own. Oh man. The first thing I really had to remember is you don't need that much paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, overpouring is still like a thing I do all the time, because I'm just like, no, I'll need all of this. When really it's just water. You need the water to spread the paint.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I had so I was a culprit of that often for like 6 months straight. So whenever I had whenever I had a leftover acrylics, no matter what color, I would mix it in with a little bit of that liquid latex, and I just had this really big generic acrylic pour painting that it was just a canvas. Whenever I had extra color, I was like, well, looks like it's getting another pour on. And like,
just
you know,
one more.
yeah, just one more. And like,
This
man,
surely won't hurt it.
and like after a few months, like, you know, doing that every day, like you start to see like, you know, the pile on the canvas grow higher and higher. Like, all right, I got to actually start to do something with this now. I got to get a plan here.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and then eventually it's almost like if you careful, it's almost like they become like this, like what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like the color stops spreading on the canvas because you've had so many layers of paint already on the canvas.
Right.
Weird stuff.
So, so let me ask you, what made you want to get into actually painting? I mean, I know you said you had done like some, you know, doodle sketches and that, but like, what inspired you to want to start taking seriously?
Oh man, I was working in my really cushy insurance job. I went to school, got my degree for psych, and I was going to go to get my mental health counseling graduate degree. I got into school and everything, and very last minute I turned it down because I couldn't stop thinking I will never have time to paint. Because when I got my undergrad, you know, I had 2 jobs just to make it through, and you know, the next step in life was my big job. You know, it's like, yeah, I have an entry level shit, but it's like, do I go to grad school, potentially get a job with potentially good pay for something I may or may not actually like? Because you know, I'm not mad about my undergrad, and I'm not regretful of it. I'm glad I went to school and got my degree, but it wasn't an art degree, you know. The only reason I got a psychology degree was because I was told I would need something sustainable, you know, like you need to do this and that to be successful, and art is not the answer. And I, you know, in school I painted, but not as much as I had liked to. And when school was finally over, I was just kind of like, well, it was summertime, so I'm just like, let me just paint as much as I can before I actually have to get into the grad school stuff. And I couldn't shake this feeling that I would never have time to paint in grad school. You'll never have time to paint because you're already working 2 jobs during undergrad. You're going to have to do the exact same thing for grad school.
Right.
And I was like, that's not happening because if I'm going to be in debt, I want to be in debt not for student loans anymore, but for maybe art supplies or fees for shows, for vending. Like, I decided I wanted to put my money towards something I actually enjoyed and potentially make a happier life for myself, I guess, if you will. Maybe not necessarily financially be as secure as I would in a boring, sustainable insurance job, but also somebody told me, well, you can't have art as your main career. So now I'm just like, well, let me show you. Let me show you something different. I just hated being told that I wouldn't get anywhere with my art. They're just doodles, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's something like people are trying to put you in a box with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They want your ambitions and your thought processes to conform to what their expectations are as opposed to what your expectations are.
Yeah, and as time went on, in the beginning, it was especially rough because, a starving artist is a real term, for a specific reason. And, I just remember the struggle and trying to get my work out there in the beginning. Like, the hardest years were definitely, right when I decided, okay, I'm going to do art as a job in addition to my regular job, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm still not there yet quite where I can transition to it being my full career. But it's definitely possible, I don't know why anybody would ever, well, I guess unless they were jealous and didn't want to see somebody else succeed, but it doesn't matter. I just don't understand why you would tell somebody, you can't do this. You can't do that. You won't make any money doing that. You won't make any money doing paintings. I'm just like, just watch me.
Yeah, I think they call those folks haters.
Haters. Sounds about right.
Well,
For
I
sure.
mean, I feel like a lot of folks, primarily when it comes to like the generational shift, right?
Mhm.
Older folks trying to tell the younger generation, what to expect. And a lot of times, that comes from a place of realism and, at times even cynicism
Yeah.
because, they weren't able to witness someone succeed at this firsthand. And a lot of times if something's outside of your experience, then, you just don't understand that it's possible to happen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when I realized that you can paint and listen to music and get exposure from doing what you like to do, I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, I'll take vacation days. That's what I have vacation for at my regular job, So it was really just like deciding to focus on like the grind for art, if you will. It's just like you get yourself out there as much as possible, and hopefully the rest will fall into place. And I mean, sounds pretty cool, but it does kind of work that way, it's just like a nonstop hustle. Sometimes it feels like, because it's like pumping out your best work, and then everyone's like, oh, can't wait to see what you do next. I'm like, oh, let me create another masterpiece real quick.
Well, yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
there's some
particularly
pressure too.
yeah, particularly in the festival scene too. If you're doing live
Mhm.
painting, not only are you going to be, creating the entire weekend, and for sometimes hours at a time, but you
Mhm.
are in the act of always trying to sell something, and you're always in the act
Mhm.
of entertaining everybody who comes up to talk to you. And just because, like, ooh, what's that supposed to be? Like, well, that's what you should be telling me. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big balancing act when you're mixing music with your art. So when
Mhm.
did you first start doing live painting?
The very first live painting show I ever did was for an artist named BassCenter. we won't go too deep into him because he's I don't know if you've heard, but there's like some drama going down in the EDM community. But
Well, I don't know. I met Bass Nectar one time.
That is so cool.
And he had just got done playing, and I was backstage at like the little bar they had set up behind the stage, right? And like he came up, and like, mind you, I was I was pretty blitzed to the wind at the time.
Fair
But I
enough.
went to him and I'm just like, hey man, can I have a single lock of your hair? He's like, what? I'm like, hey man, no, it's not for me. It's not a weird thing. Like, I'm gonna put it on eBay, but like, can I have just one single strand of your hair? And like, it was obviously a joke. And the guy just looked at me, he's like, no. And he just looked so like confused and disgusted.
I know. He's so introverted and shit goes over his head. Yeah. No, I mean, it wasn't even Bass Nectar that invited me to paint. You know what I mean? It was like the team that worked for him. So I mean, I can go on and on about that situation. So, but yeah, I definitely got my big, quote unquote, big break via Bass Nectar and the live painting, because after that, the people just kind of started to ask about, like, they would follow me on Instagram, and then they would like ask about commission, local, and that kind of gave me the courage to go local with the art, because I was like, well, I am pretty close to Philly. So I ended up working with like underground groups in Philly, just applying to little art shows, like anything I could find that was nearby, just to get my name out there, my stuff out there. And so it just kind of built off of that. So it's like, okay, I did the Bass Nectar show, I did the local show, and now there's a couple more coming up in Delaware. Maybe I should look into those. And as the years go by, it's like you still do, well, some of them, you still do those shows in addition to what you find on top of that. So the year following, after I did just one live painting show for Bass Nectar, the year after that, I did 3 local shows, another Nectar show, and then the year after that, I go to fucking Mexico, you know what I mean? So it's like, it just, as long as you just fucking keep pushing, it's eventually gonna get there. I feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the piece of advice that I give to every creative type. I mean, and throughout my episodes, I have talked to a variety of different creative people, animators to writers, and I actually had a guy the other episode, Nick Gibbons from Adult Swim, and that was his exact piece of advice for every creative type. Just don't stop creating. Doesn't matter if you can make money off of it. It doesn't matter if it goes anywhere. What matters is that you're creating and that you're not getting discouraged, because as long as you're creating, you're at least expressing yourself and getting your voice out there.
Yes, exactly. And it's also a numbers game too, if you're trying to sell, because I mean, Picasso only had a handful of famous paintings, but how many paintings did he do in his whole lifetime? You know what I mean?
Tons.
Yeah.
I have 2 Picassos, and they're just like sketches. But that and the story goes is that the art collector acquired them from this fella that like Picasso just like gave him a bunch of sketches for some food or some booze or something like that. That's what he would do. Is he would walk around with like a sketchbook and just like do little quick sketches and hand it out for things he wanted, because if you're working at a liquor store and Picasso comes in and says, I'll either pay for that bottle or give you a Picasso, you're gonna take a Picasso.
You're taking the Picasso for sure. That is amazing. I wish it was still kind of like that these days. Just walk to a liquor store. Here, how about instead of the money, I'll give you an original painting.
Yeah.
That would be cool. But the point is to like keep pushing, because without the numbers, you're not going to have the chance to have it blow up like that. Right. Yeah. So it's like it's almost like leaving like if you have like a handful of marbles, and like every place you go, you leave a marble, and like the only reason to go back to that place is because you left the marble there. Right. And other people are like, oh, I've seen that marble. they were at Breakaway Festival, so let me do this, that, and the other, you know. And that's how I learned the hard way. That's how you get people coming back, returning customers. It's like just put yourself out there. Because I did a local show in Delaware one time, and I didn't really sell anything because it had rained and the festival grounds were just muddy and there was no place to walk, and a lot of other tents had been like flooded in from the rain because it was like an outside thing. Not mine though, because I didn't leave mine overnight. So what happened was, like a year later, I got a message on Instagram from this very nice girl, and she told me she got my business card last year from the festival, and she needed me to do a what's the word I'm looking for? A logo for her. So okay. I did her logo, but now it's been like over a year. She's bought so much stuff from me at this point. And just because I gave her my business card during that one shitty festival, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's like I may have not made too much that day, but I have this beautiful returning customer, you know? And I was like, okay, so maybe that's how it works. Like out of so many people available to you, you're only going to get like one or two, maybe, if you're lucky.
Well, I think it's also opening yourself up to every opportunity that presents itself, because, you know, you're an abstract artist and she asked you for a logo. That's kind of something that would be usually outside of what you would usually do. But you said yes, you opened yourself up to a new experience and a new opportunity. And then, you know, you did such a good job, that person's going to keep coming back for what you do specialize in.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, if you keep, and as long as you're just honest with people too, you're like, oh, maybe I haven't really worked with that medium, but I can definitely try it. Or not tell them at all. It depends, you know? Depends on how good you are at your crafts. So, I mean, anyone, you know the phrase, fake it till you make it. I mean, like, I remember a long time ago, somebody asked me to draw a tattoo design for them, and you know, I didn't know how any of that worked. I didn't know if skin was different than paper, but I was like, yeah, I'll draw one for you, no problem. She's like, you've done it before, right? I'm like, yeah, I've done plenty. But you know, she knew I wasn't a tattoo artist. She knew I just like to doodle, you know. So she was like, maybe you could do that for me. And it's like, yeah. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying like you should lie about what you're good at, you know what I mean? But it's like, if you are good at it, but it's just kind of like a different version of that thing you're good at, like you're probably still good at it.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't, like, if you play the guitar, you can probably play the ukulele. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, once you learn, you know, certain things on a guitar, because I play mandolin and banjo.
Very cool.
One of the things that I've always found interesting is how certain things that you pick up with on certain instruments can transfer over, right?
Yes.
Just like
Like
I was, I don't know, even though the mandolin and banjo are two way different instruments, like certain picking patterns on the banjo will actually transfer over to the mandolin quite nicely, as long as you kind of like rework them in the timing. So like it's the same thing with art though, right? You know, a lot of
it's all
things.
confidence.
Yeah. What you pick up in dealing with one medium can transfer over. I think Bob Ross taught me that.
What'd you say?
I said, I'm pretty sure Bob Ross taught me that.
Oh, yes. How relevant. How perfect.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. As a self-trained artist, as soon as they added that collection on Netflix, that was a tool and a resource that I have just found profoundly influential on me.
That is amazing.
Primarily when, like, you know, you try and like deal with like oils and stuff, because his wet on wet technique is a lifesaver, primarily if you want oil to be more forgiving.
And you know, and that's another thing, like, your techniques don't have to be Bob Ross's techniques, you know? Yeah, so you can watch the Netflix and just kind of get like the gist of it. Like, okay, he's making that hand shape, I can do that. and you know, maybe it doesn't look exactly the same, but it's got your own little flair to it now.
Yeah,
So it's your own little
absolutely.
style. So it's like still right. It's not wrong. Just go with it now, because even if you make a mistake, it's your mistake. It's your piece now. The mistake is the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and I don't know, I guess that's the one thing that like I guess the one thing that makes, you know, the mistakes more prevalent is that like within art itself, like you can even, you know, once you make a mistake, expound on that and create something new that was outside of your original vision but complements it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I love when a piece turns out better than I had expected, honestly, or if it turns into something I didn't plan at all. Like I have sketched out several pieces that I have definitely just been like, you know what, I'm gonna just go over this with something else. Because that's another beautiful thing about art. You can just change it if you want. You can just change it. Like, I don't like this. Paint over this with white.
So let me ask you. I guess you've cranked out quite a few pieces. Was there any specific pieces that have kind of resonated with you as special? Yeah, that you kind of I don't want to say maybe didn't choose to sell, but ones that kind of you know, kind of that you're particularly proud of.
Yeah, I have a couple, if I may. So I did my very first mural in Philly.
Oh, awesome.
Uh, Thank you. It's at a it's at an underground studio. Uh, the address is escaping me at the moment, but it's this huge. It's the first big piece I had ever done. And it was one of those situations where I was like, "Can you do this on a bigger scale?" And I was like, "Yeah," even though I had never done it before, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
absolutely.
yeah, and I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. And it ended up being like one of the best pieces I've ever done. Um, and the owners of the studio, you know, we talked about pricing, and since it was like probably one of the first, and that since it was probably one of the first big pieces I ever did, I gave them like a really, really good deal, if you will, like for the
Mhm.
amount of space that the actual paint went on. But you know, when those types of situations, you gotta like remember, you're like, hey, your name is not big yet. This is your first big piece. Like you're not gonna like. I mean, you're not gonna get a better deal than this
Right.
probably at this moment. You know. And that's something that I've always kind of like struggled with is pricing, I guess, because like it's gonna be valued differently to different people, but then you got to think about the population you're presenting the piece to. It's like, do they have enough money for this? Is it enough money for you? Is it too much money? Are you overselling? Are you underselling yourself? There's a lot of questions that come into it. But it being my very first big piece, they were just so welcoming and understanding, and they were themselves were kind of just surprised at how much a mural actually could cost. And so I was like, okay, so tell you what, since we're both kind of new to this, let's just do this amount and I'll do the whole wall. And I mean, it was fun. You know, it was probably one of the funnest pieces I've ever made because it's just a wall to myself, you know. And it being a studio, people coming in and out all the time to see it. And I don't know, it's cool. uh, and this other piece I had done, it was a giant 4x4 canvas, like, and I remember I bought it from Michael's, like not knowing the intention for it at all. I was just like, I just need a I know. I was like, I need a big canvas,
Big old canvas.
big old canvas for me. And so I am thankful I have a convertible because it would not fit in my car. I had to drive home with the top down. And I don't know. It was just funny. So I had been working on this piece like through a particularly hard time for myself. I was like on medical leave at the time, and like I was going through job transitions.
Yeah.
And so it would just be one of those pieces where, like, you know, actually I had a plan for it, but it was one of those pieces where I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do something different. I'm not feeling like sketching out these solid lines. I want to make swirls because I'm feeling loose or something, like, or I'm not, yeah, I don't feel like working on these straight lines. I'm just gonna paint what I feel. And it ended up being this really huge geometric piece. And it was like I took it to a, thank you. I took it to one of my Philly live painting shows in my convertible. Sorry, a phone number is calling me. Decline. Okay, sorry. My bad. So I ended up live painting it at a show in Philly, and this, like, an older friend of mine that is unfortunately no longer with us, he bought the painting after he saw it for the first time, and it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody's face just like automatically light up from seeing something I created. And he was just like, yeah, I want this. And I remember him asking me how much it was, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I haven't thought about that. And I was just like, out of the blue, I was like, maybe like 400. And he was just like, that's not enough, like, I need to pay you more for this. And I was like, really? Okay, I'll take it. It's not done yet though. So he did eventually end up buying it, and that was like the very first big piece I've ever sold.
Yeah.
So like that one just had, I mean, now that the person that bought it isn't with us anymore, I found I have like a really emotional connection to that piece, even though it's not with me anymore, you know. Because to this day, it's still the biggest thing I've done, just from pure emotion, like not really like the scrapping that plan and just doing it because I wanted to, and just letting my feeling like take over the whole thing. And I've just started to notice with every piece I do make, the more I let go, the better it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you gotta take your original intent, just throw it out the window. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like paintings are even more special once they find that person that, like, obviously that painting was meant to go to him because he was willing to go above and beyond what you were asking, just because it resonated with him so much.
Yeah.
But when you find paintings like that, or sorry, when you find people like that like it automatically just resonates with them, and they have that emotional connection. I mean, it just makes that process of creating it so much more deeper.
Yeah. And I mean, now I'm always going to associate like that size of canvas, and that, I mean, just that emotion that is connected to like even just like the shape of the canvas, you know what I mean? Like it just sticks with you for a long time, even after you've sold the paintings, you know? Yeah. Like once they're gone, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I've just given somebody a little piece of myself in a way. Yeah. And just having people say, nice things about my paintings are so like, it's like, oh, you like that? What? You actually like what I put on this paper? It's nothing, like it's just me doodling. But then people are like, no, it's art. It's art. And I don't know, I guess circling back to your original question, how did I get inspired, was just, I guess, people pointing that shit out to me, like, no, you should, there's something to your doodles, you should do something about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I will.
Yeah, it's like
do that.
Like discovering your own identity through it.
That too. And I've noticed that with paintings in general, like the artist always has their own type of flair to it. Like there's something that you're like, oh, that's a Monet, like, oh, that's a Sam Stransky, like, just, I want that, I want people to be like, oh, that swirl doodle thing, I know that's a Sam Stransky. That's just the ultimate goal at this point, like I remember just wondering during like that time of me going to or not going to grad school, I'm like, is this all there is to life? Is this all that's it? Is this it? Like, grad school and an insurance job. But no, you can just paint over that shit. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. You can just do what you want to do eventually, you know, like obviously we all need to chop wood and carry water in a sense. I read that in a book.
Well, I mean, everything worth striving for is going to be a struggle.
Yeah. That I'll walk through hell before you get to heaven, for sure. And I mean, just the hustle is real. The hustle is so real. I'm sure you know, having your own podcast and being an artist and a musician, like the hustle is how you get it done. Like the drive, the want to get, you want to want it.
Yeah.
You have to want it.
Yeah. You have to strive to make your dreams a reality. No one's going to make them for you. And that's why it's so important to follow that inner voice and follow different places that it can take you.
True that. Because, I mean, you might as well do what makes you happy, especially with everything going on right now.
Yeah. When the future isn't necessarily guaranteed, it makes you focus more on being in the moment.
Exactly. Yes, that's a great way to put it. Like I find myself just wanting to paint when like I'm supposed to be doing my responsibilities, you know, like my day job. Like it's like, why do I just want to say fuck it and go do what I want? I don't know. But in a way that kind of helps like with the drive because I mean, not the drive, I guess the hustle, if you will. It's like you do your day job, finish that shit up, and then just go paint until 2 a.m, however long it takes, I guess, you know? It's like I feel like you have to do that part of the hustle to even get to a remotely satisfactory place, you know? Because without the hustle, when you just get it, it's like, what are you working towards? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like primarily with our generation, you don't see folks associate their identities as close with their daytime jobs anymore. You know, there's a lot of reasons for that. We can go into the socioeconomic reasons another time, but because millennials and Gen Z, I will assume, will be the exact same way. Without having that, you know, that attachment to, you know, a vocation with our identities, we then project that onto different skills and things that we do outside of our jobs that we, you know, might find mundane and oftentimes unfulfilling. And, you know, I feel like that's important for people listening, that if they're not doing something creative, if they're not trying a bunch of different things and just kind of seeing what sticks and seeing what resonates with them, then, you know, you're not going to have something positive that you can kind of anchor your sense of self into.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if, you know, it would be awesome to one day be working your dream job. You don't have to worry about money, monetary things, or how you're going to get to your dream job, you know, like the mundane day in, day out, just like, oh, when am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? Like how I forget where I was going with this, but something about just working hard and working constantly is how you're going to get to what you're working towards, you know. Just constantly doing it, and having a creative outlet is so important aside from your quote unquote dream job, whether it be art or business, whatever, computers, anything. Like there's the work side, and then there's you know, you got to be able to release too,
right?
Because what if you really enjoy your job, but like you know what I like to tell people sometimes, it's like I struggled moving into the art world as a career because it's like, oh, art is what I used to relax, what I used to calm down, how I used blah blah blah, and you know, commissions coming in and stuff, I'm not necessarily painting the things I want to paint. So it's like, is painting relaxing anymore, or is
Yeah.
it just a job at this point? So being able to have an outlet outside of that dream job, if you will, or even if art is the dream job, so to speak, being able to have those days where you don't have to make good art and you're just painting for the sake of painting, rather than painting for a job or a commission. Just having something other than the everyday work day, work is so necessary these days. Yeah, and just like you said, since the future's not technically too guaranteed, it's like, why focus so hard on what's hard right now when you can equally focus on what relaxes you and what you need to do.
Right.
I know it's not true for everybody, obviously, like definitely other people have more struggles than some, but I hope the point I'm trying to make is getting across.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's more about bringing positivity into your life, doing those activities that make you feel good about yourself and that kind of recharge your battery, because so many people, I mean, primarily now with, kind of the world the way it is, and so many people struggling just to make ends meet. A lot of folks are just running on low,
Yeah.
they're just running on steam at this point. And I feel like a lot of folks, when they get to that level, they just kind of go through the motions, and they lose sense on what's important and what should
Yeah.
be important in their life, which is, finding fulfillment and purpose.
Absolutely. Fulfillment for sure. Purpose for sure. Happiness, I don't know. Is that also fulfillment? Maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, I
But
mean, happiness, I don't know. Happiness is an interesting thing, because the happiness that you experience in the moment might be completely different than how you remember that sense of happiness years later. I mean,
right.
prime example, like you were saying, you went to this shitty festival and it wasn't really a good time. And I'm sure the entire weekend, right? You really weren't too happy. You're just kind of going through the motions. But looking back on it years later, you made that one connection, and now that event is associated with a happy memory, even though it might not have been in the moment. So I don't know. I always feel like
Yeah.
happiness is in a state of flux.
Yeah. Yeah. It's transient.
Yeah.
Like water. Yeah, for sure. And it's like, if your job brings you happiness, that's fucking awesome. Like that's so awesome. But even if your job doesn't bring you happiness, I feel like having something outside of it is so necessary. Something that makes you happy, whatever it may be.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue, because we are getting down to the end of the show. So if folks did want to follow you, I know that unfortunately there's not going to be many art events going on this year, which is a shame. But that just means, folks, that if you are a supporter of the arts, that you need to step up online sales, going to websites, Instagram, following artists, and making yourself available to the stuff that they're putting out, because a lot of artists nowadays are struggling to find avenues to display their art, to promote their art. So in the vein of that, where can people follow you, and what website should they go to check out some of your art and possibly purchase some?
Well, if you want to buy something, you can. If you really want to buy something, you can go to my website at samstranart.com. Just Sam STRAN art.com. My Instagram is Sam Likes to Doodle. because in the beginning, when I was trying to find a handle, I was just like, I just like to doodle. That's all. So that was my Facebook for a while, but then I changed it to Sam Stran Art on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
So you can find me on Insta, Facebook, my website. I'm always doing like fun games and promotions now. Like I just did what's called a waffle, which is like kind of similar to a raffle, but more legal, if you will, for online. So I do stuff like that all the time because, you know, original art can be expensive. So I try to make it fun ways. So not only will I, you know, get my payback, if you will, but it'll also be cheaper to everybody else trying to get it. And I mean, if you want to do like some type of promotion regarding this show, like if they say something like, oh, I listened to your podcast with JE, give me that discount, that would be cool. I would do that. So I guess if whoever's listening to this podcast, what do you say, 20% off, 50% off?
I would say 20% sounds about right.
Okay, so if any listener that's listening, I'll give you 20% off. Just let me know you listen to the show.
Awesome. Then, folks, go ahead, follow her on Facebook, follow her on Instagram, and, you know, go to the website. And definitely, if you want to utilize that 20% off, go ahead and buy a painting. And, you know, when they add the little comment section, just make sure to tell them you are an unusual mind.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was great having you on. And yeah, folks, give her a like, give her a subscribe, because, you know, the thing about the arts is it's only as strong as those who support it. Good night, folks.
Mm-hmm.